Hello, good evening. This is Government TV. It's Thursday evening, and my name is Godwin Obuche, and I'm here with my co-host from the city of Abuja, Dr. Moses Paul. Good evening, Dr. Mo.
Good evening, sir. And we're here every Thursday as we promised, and right here in the city of Abuja. Well, the temperature and the weather it's not as cool as we have it in Kano, I learned, and but we are okay, and we prefer it this way.
Yes, we have different nations within the same country, and even though we do not have the same time zone, we don't have different time zone. We
Different
have
time zone.
different. We have different. We have different weather conditions, different climatic conditions. Temperate in the middle of the country, very hot uh, and humid down south
Down
sometimes.
south.
So it's a beautiful country, and that's the reason why we continue to interrogate the issues of leadership and development and growth concerning our land. So in the month of February, we have taken uh, time in every episode to talk about Nigeria's election in 2023 and ask the politicians who are vying for political offices the right questions. We are discussing non-partisan issues. We are not getting involved in the internal affairs of party politics, but we are advocates of the people, advocates of Nigerian development, advocates of robust governance, and that is our concern. Whoever emerges from whichever political platform, it's not a concern for us as long as that person is the right fit for the job with respect to the many issues that we have to contend with, especially now that Nigeria is in dire straits economically. We have the challenge of security, and of course, the nation is divided along religious and tribal and ethnic lines. So we need a leader who has an understanding of all of these issues and how he can begin to hit the ground running on the 29th of May 2023. But before we get there, it's still a long way, about 12 months to the election, another 15 months or so to the
Mhm.
swearing in of the new president, and there will be elections in about 27 states of the
Yes.
country. There will be senatorial elections, there will be House of Rep elections, and state House of Assemblies will also need to be filled with new persons. And so it's a whole plethora of offices that would need to be filled by various um, candidates who should be competent, up to the task, and understand the basic dynamics of how to run a diverse and heterogeneous a country like Nigeria. And so that's the concern that we have taken time to analyze and to talk about throughout the month. Now, last in the last three editions, my co-host from Abuja, had one challenge or the other. Last week, towards the end of the program, his own side of the screen went black because there was no power supply, and that's on record. Sometime in the future, we will play back that video, and we will talk about how there was a time we had a conversation on Government TV's the Better You TV show, and one side of the screen was black because there was no light. And I'm sure that the future generation very soon will wonder how that was possible, because I believe that with the hope agenda we are setting, we will have the right fit of leadership that will fix some of these challenges. So let me go back to my co-host in Abuja, um, to be able to give me his thoughts on the kind of questions we should ask our politicians as they come to the electorates, to the party members, to have them nominate them or ask them to stand in consensus format to represent their parties. No, now we had looked at the economy, we looked at the education, we looked at power, and in some of those conversations, my co-host was not on ground. So I would like for you to speak on the economy, the right questions we should ask our politicians on the economy. As they come campaigning, what kind of questions should we ask them about security if they have a good understanding? And the third one you should speak about, because I'm going to yield the mic to you for about 10 minutes, what kind of thoughts should we have them express in the area of education? So I've locked in 3 issues. Number 1, security. Number 2, the economy. And number 3, education. Then when you're done with that, we will begin to talk about health and other sector. I would also like for us to, in this edition, if we have the time, to talk about transport infrastructure as well as agriculture. So you have the mic. Let's talk about those 3.
Fantastic and very interesting.
Should we ask?
The kind of questions we should be looking at. Incidentally, and I think also precisely in the timeline of our global history, because the world is also become a very small village. You can see rightly that part of the security challenges we are having is not just localized to us as a people. And this is the one thing that there's a kind of questions that we have to pose. You know, what kind of question we should be asking the people vying, the candidates and those who are putting themselves forward for the positions of leadership, beginning from the presidency down to the chairman and all, you know, the senatorial district and all. But particularly, it's important for whoever is going to be the president of Nigeria, and our president should be answering questions as concerning the global event that is going on right now, because the whole world is being terrorized as it is right now. There are suggestions and people are alluding that if care is not taken, we are at the introductory state of the Third World War. And I remember today I was speaking with a group of people who were completely alienated from the reality of things where it concerns global security, because they can't seem to be able to bring their minds to connecting the dots between global security, national security, local security, you know, that has to do with our community security and, you know, all our private and, you know, household security and all of that. A president of Nigeria right now should be able to give us and speak directly to the global event of things as concerning what we see today in Ukraine and the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. If a president should be asked, should be put on the hot seat to be able to propose a solution, what should we do to quell what is happening right now between Russia and Ukraine? Any president who cannot answer that question right now definitely does not know what is happening in the trenches in Zamfara, in the hiding holes of the terrorists in Kaduna State, in Abuja, and in all over the place. You know, so we must have, these are the questions, the kind of questions should be asking, you know, and that goes from both the presidency down to the local government, because security issues, like I said, are both global, national, local, communal, and private to the various individuals. All of these things are linked. At the time that we have right now, where with the kind of technology that have been deployed right now, if care is not taken and certain things are applied, it will shock you that even as we are right now, that our phones and everything can be bugged. So we need a president who is in touch with not just the past, not just our current realities, but has an understanding of the future security, what we should be doing, how we should intercept and interact. A president or a leader who should be able to answer questions on policies that affect foreign relationships. If you cannot answer questions on foreign relationship, you definitely cannot bring an understanding for what is happening in the intra and interstate relationship. Because these criminal elements that we're talking about, these are the borders upon which they tread. So we are going to be posing questions on how to solve both the long-term, the mid-term, and the immediate security situation of Nigeria. We should ask the leaders the kind of question, what would you do given the kind of situations we have right now? And it is imperative that any leader that is coming up should be able to look at Nigerians in the eye, look at Africa, profile, articulate our problems, in a way that every person on the road can have an understanding, and also affect the architecture of security from the military to the paramilitary to everybody, to all the security management architecture. These are the kind of questions you should be asking the leaders. Anyone who cannot attend and proffer solutions directly to these issues will definitely not want to be either recommended or supported to vie for any office in the current state of affairs globally and in our nation particularly. Stemming from that, it is critical to ask those security questions because it links directly with the economy. Anywhere there is no stability of security, there cannot be any meaningful development. There will be no sustainable growth. And any leader who is able to answer the security questions correctly, I can more than assure you that any question that you pose to that person in terms of the economy, he'll be able to profile what is required in the 21st century. We should be asking our leaders questions about their understanding as regards precision agriculture. We should be asking those leaders about how you can use technology to be able to help in the growth and management services in terms of growth economically, because this is where the world is right now. A leader, we should be asking them what they need to do given the large gap between the poor and the rich. What would a leader, what would a president speak as concerning the middle class that is completely being wiped out today in the current state of affairs in Nigeria? A leader should be asked questions about the bilateral relationship between our bordering nations, and also the interplay and interfaces of the trading of our mineral resources, from gold to tantalite to columbite to the coal, to how we should begin to refine our crude oil. I want to ask a leader how it is possible to be able to overhaul completely, and I mean completely, where we have zero importation of our crude material. We want leaders who will be able to look Nigerians in the eye and be able to provide solutions as concerning how Nigeria can move between the next 10 years to global power economically, because everything that is required economically is available. What we don't have are visionary leaders who can plug in these gaps. These are the kind of questions we should be asking. And definitely a leader who is not educated cannot answer this question. And that brings also to bear the kind of question we should be asking. Leaders who understand the educational value system beyond the four walls of the school. Because today, in the US, for example, or when you talk about Google, or you look at some conglomerates even in China, they don't recommend or employ people based on the paper certification. We need a leader that understands that understand education as different from literacy and as different from schooling. So we're going to ask a leader, what is the difference between literacy education and schooling. Any leader that cannot answer in today, the 21st century, who can give a blueprint and define the difference in the strategic relevance of literacy, education, and schooling, definitely is not fit to be a president or a leader in any sphere at all in Nigeria. These are the kind of questions we will be asking leaders, not the questions as concerning, because a leader who can plug in this will know exactly what is required to be done that will affect the difference between our public schools and private schools, and how in the last 30 years we have completely lost the value. If we put our leaders, can we ask them, what is the value of private schools as compared to public schools? These are big gaps. 30 years ago, 40 years ago in Nigeria, the aspirations and dreams of fathers and parents and mothers is to send their children to what? To public schools. Today, as we speak, it is zero. No parent aspire, dream to ever send their children to any public school. There are just two things. Those who cannot fly their children abroad, they dream and pray to send them to what? To private schools. But guess what? It is also part of the huge problem that is affecting us, because the public schools are able to close the gap between the poor and the rich. They help to cushion the tension in the way poor people are able to assimilate and deal with the tension of the society. We need a leader who is articulate enough, who understands the logic of helping to bring back the relevance of school, like people like Awolowo did. The reason why today you have Southerners, and particularly the Yoruba speaking tribe, as one of the foremost, not just educated, but highly educated. You can have in one family 5 professors. You can have in one family all technocrat, educated people in every field, was because of the seed and understanding of a visionary leader like Pa Awolowo. So we need leaders who have this understanding. So in these 3 stratas, we need leaders who are impeccable, who understand the security challenge and can answer any question. Also the economy, who can raise the value of this huge mass of people that we have. Over more than 70% of Nigerians' population fall into this group of both poor, young, energy, who are not able to deploy themselves into economic activities. We need leaders that can plug in that, and also leaders that understand the value of education beyond just the mundane, beyond what people know, that can bring value to the 21st century education and plug in all and understand the value of technicalities as different from academics, and also as different from idealistic driven leaders who are what? Who are ideologically driven. Any leader that can separate all of this will definitely be a leader who can handle not just the complex, but the difficult the difficult terrain of the Nigerian state in these 3 stratas. These are the kind of questions we should be asking any leader who wants to vie to take the position of leadership in the current state of Nigeria.
Very well said, Dr. Mo. And while you were speaking, I also felt compelled to share the video I played last week. Was it last week or the week before? Of a live class we had in church, and we have been discussing the comparison between Nigeria and English-speaking African nations that were colonized by the British, and how far backward we have become, compared to them. Last Sunday, we looked at Egypt, and we discovered that Egypt, with its many very unstable governments since the Arab Spring, has continued to maintain very stable security system, except of course with the insurgency in the Sinai Peninsula, which is an isolated incident that the country's leaders have been able to contain, that it has not spread to any other part of Egypt. Egypt continued to remain a tourist destination of many European countries. They have preserved their tourist state in a way that it continues to earn foreign exchange. Egypt does not have crude oil. They don't even. They are not members of OPEC yet. Egypt has more than 15 refineries working and giving refined petroleum, exporting part of it to Sudan and Southern Sudan, because those other countries are countries where instability, reigns supreme in the last couple of years. So I will play back that video. It's a very short video, but our audience will also get a better perspective to the matters we're looking at, because it was a different audience and it was a live audience in a worship center. So we're going to take a look at that and come back to look at the other kind of questions that we should ask our leaders going forward. We'll have that in a short while. I just want to get it out and then we are good to go. And the subject matter of discussion on that particular day, was the leader that Nigeria needs. The leader that Nigeria needs. So let's have it. Here it is.
Doing very beautiful, and they don't seem to be bigger than us. The reason why they are having such progress is because they have more educated people who understand what they need from leaders, not people who will say, God will just help us. What can we do? We can do something. We can talk. We can speak truth to power. There are so many policies because of the advent of social media that have been reversed because people screamed. Have you noticed? Otherwise, this oil subsidy and the price of fuel would have been increased long time ago. But anytime they mention it, if you see the level of engagement of educated Nigerians or aware Nigerians online, they'll quickly reverse it, because the real power resides with the citizens. You see a little example of it during the EndSARS. Without education, and the Nigerian elite, the Nigerian politician is afraid of educated people coming together. They are afraid of them. So we need a leader who is so secure in himself, ensures that more and more people are educated. If you educate the people, you grow the country. But look at our educational institution. Public primary schools are dead, and private schools are looking for money. So check the teachers in private schools and check how much they are paying them, side by side with the amounts that the students are paying for school fees. You discover that most private schools are scams, because the government is absent in the place of education. Who supervises the curriculum of private schools? So we need a leader who understands the power and the value of education. And how do you know that? By the person's education. And when the person speaks and what he says about education, we have a tendency, because we have a mass of people who are not educated, to just queue behind somebody who seems to have a popular name and who has capacity to distribute plenty money. And our people around this part of the country say, and then we sell our culture. So education is one. Number two, somebody who has an understanding of the security challenge that we have right now, who can speak clearly to the issues. What about the economy? Somebody who understands how to grow the economy. Somebody who knows the A, B, C. And when you speak, you yourself, you say, I want to understand more. Not somebody who will continue to assure us. All the assurance, where is it? Praise God. Are we still in church? Because if you keep quiet and a leader like the current one that we have emerges again, do you know what will happen? You may not have the opportunity to worship because you won't have the capacity to even pay your way to church. And every morning and every evening that you come to news, you will have assurance. Now assurance you go chop. So this is also righteousness, being watchful as you pray, as you cast your vote, being watchful. And as I speak to you, I speak to myself and I speak to all the people who are watching us online. Every Nigerian, whether home and abroad, call your people. Let them ask the right questions.
We must ask the right questions. It's absolutely very necessary. So I believe that if you missed out on this video last week, you have a better understanding of what it is. And my co-host had already looked at the subject matter of the kind of questions we should ask in the area of security, in the economy, and in education. And I'd like for us to focus a little bit on health, and maybe we'll touch on transport infrastructure before we shut down today. On health matters, there is a primary health center that we are supposed to have. There is the secondary health centers, and then the tertiary health centers. Now, within the concept of the drafters of these health policies, the primary health care, it's supposed to take place at the local government levels. And these local governments are actually the places where the people are best connected with government. That's where they are supposed to be best connected to government. But of course, the local governments in Nigeria, staffed of fund, emasculated by state governors, are virtually mere nomenclatures in the templates of governance. They don't really exist. Most local governments chairmen are appendages of a state governor. The state governments are against constitutional provision, even against Order 10, Executive Order 10 that the president signed, to ensure that the local government funds are released to them directly. The governors still emasculate these local governments. And that's the reason why when you have local government election in a state like Kano or in a state like Lagos, all the seats in all of the local governments are taken by the party of the governor. Because in effect, the Independent National Electoral Commission does not conduct local government elections in states. They are directly under the control of the governor. The governor appoints the state's SEC. So it is not possible to have opposition parties of the ruling government in a state to actually have candidates win election. And so this local government is supposed to provide quality primary schools, quality health centers. And it is actually built in the provision of the constitution that as they are giving funds, they are also supposed to maintain infrastructure like roads, water, and all of that. But that is not happening. And so the health sector called, the health unit called the primary health centers are dead. And there are supposed to be thousands of them spread across the 774 local governments in Nigeria, but they are not working. And that is why the concept of general hospitals, even at state levels, are no longer functional. And so we have the appellation of federal medical centers. These are supposed to have been general hospitals. I remember in my state capital, the place where the General Hospital Makurdi used to be is now christened Federal Medical Center, now run by the Federal Ministry of Health. The thing has not changed, the environment has not changed, the services have dwindled over the years, but it is now called Federal Medical Centers. And okay, let's even give it to them that they wanted to have federal might so that healthcare can be available to the states with federal government capacity. But the truth is, if that was so, then private health institutions, private clinics, private hospitals would not be thriving as they are today, because they are smiling to the bank on a constant basis because of the failure of public health institutions. And then let's escalate it further to the tertiary health institutions, like teaching hospitals. Teaching hospitals are not supposed to be places where you handle things like malaria, typhoid, and all of these things that can be handled at the primary health care centers. But teaching hospitals today have outpatient wards and consulting rooms that take care of something as common as malaria. These are supposed to be research centers for health. They're supposed to be places where health workers and doctors in training are being taken through certain very special, complicated operations. But it has become a regular hospital. We have the Bayero University Teaching Hospital, which is also called the Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital. It has become a place where regular health issues are attended to. And so the entire health architecture of Nigeria is in shambles. You have diagnoses that go wrong. You have people going abroad with diagnosis of cancer in Nigeria, only to go abroad and find out that they're suffering from another disease and they don't have cancer, and then they are treated and they return back home. Wrong diagnosis with wrong prescription, because if the investigation is wrong, the treatment will be wrong. And so needlessly, people die because of very poor health facilities. The private hospitals do not have the capacity to handle major issues because they do not have the might, the infrastructural capacity to be able to get all of the machines that federal and state or local governments should be getting. And so Nigerians are left to their own devices. And for some of us, in the absence of very good public hospitals and very bad services by private hospitals, we are left to live by faith and depend on God for divine health. That is not supposed to be so. That is not supposed to be so. So a leader and successive leaders have not addressed this issue. And that is why there is a heightened level of health tourism out of Nigeria. And most of the health tourists, when they go abroad, some of the doctors that attend to them are Nigerian doctors working in some of the best hospitals around the world. So they could actually have attended to them at home if there was the right infrastructure, to the point that the Aso Rock Clinic that gobs billions of naira every month in budget lines for Aso Rock cannot attend to the president. Even the president himself that signs the budget does not trust the doctors and the facilities in his own compound. And so we do not want that kind of leadership anymore. We want a leader who will also show us example. I am part of you. I am one of you. And so I don't even need to go to the National Hospital in Abuja, where I live. I can be treated and operated and taken care of within the villa, in the villa clinic, because it is supposed to be the apex #1 health, primary health and secondary or tertiary health center in Nigeria, because it is situated in the compound where the #1 citizen is. So it is expected to take care of the family of the first citizen, the second citizen, the ministers, and those who work within the villa. But I'm not sure, since the last 7 years, that our president has stepped into the health center within the Aso Rock. And I am not also sure that the vice president does that, because it was from the mouth of the first lady that we heard that she went to the Aso Rock clinic and they couldn't give her Panadol. And then you wonder what happens to the budget lines. Because if there is any hospital or clinic that should be giving the attention, it should be the Villa Clinic. So is it that there was no budgetary allocation? And nobody has been able to explain why they couldn't get Panadol in a typical day in the clinic in Aso Rock? Because obviously the First Lady must have made an unscheduled visit. Because if she had told them I'm coming to be, they would have made some emergency provisions. But she couldn't get, obviously, maybe she didn't even meet a doctor there. So that's the challenge that we have. And a leader must address, and we have to interrogate whoever is going to be the leader or whoever comes to us campaigning. What will you do? And we will lay it bare before the person. And I think that our media practitioners should be bold enough to ask questions, because it does appear that there is a conspiracy of silence amongst media practitioners, especially when they are induced. And I know the state of poverty in our land can make people to, turn a blind eyes to their own conscience. Let me hear my co-host reiterate some of these issues and talk about transport infrastructure and the kind of questions we should ask our president in waiting or in campaigning, and then we can wrap up the conversation tonight.
I mean, just listening to you enumerate on this, it's just eye-opening, and also shedding, giving guidelines to our viewers on tactical questions that should be asked to the incomings or the people who are, putting for themselves to rule in various capacities in this country. And I am so impressed with the pattern and how you laid it out, because it equally allows everyone to be involved and also equally holds everyone responsible and accountable, because starting with, where you laid it, really soundly from the primary. We hear this thing every time. Primary health care, which means that this is primary to everybody. This is your immediate. This is where the chief controller of that is the, what do you call it now? The local government chairman of every local government, of the 744 local governments, in the country, where the woman in our village, everywhere, should be able to be attended to, whether in childbearing, in aging, in whatever, in the headache, in snake bites from the farm, in whatever level. This is the first line of action in terms of health. And there are budgetary allocations to this from time immemorial. So while you spoke, you see, I kept, and it is so sad when the secondary health cares are completely eroded, because what happens is that is a cycle of failure. And because the primary is affected, it impacts on the secondary. And because the secondary is impacted, it moves to the tertiary. So we are completely, in shambles, to for lack of a better word, like you rightly pointed out. And this is where, with all the billions that are allocated to the primary health care of the Aso Villa, yet our president cannot be treated in that place. These things cannot be overemphasized, because any leader that is coming, in fact, we should ask, one of the good questions that should ask is, we should frame a question that allows every leader that should be treated in this country mandatorily. If you are a leader and you have to go abroad for anything, you should resign. People should sign social contract agreement with all the leaders. Any local government chairman that goes abroad to India, to America, to anywhere should resign. If the president, on the grounds of health, we should ask the right questions that will allow them to sign up an agreement that anytime there is a failure of our primary, secondary, and health and tertiary health facilities, they will not only be held accountable, but somebody should be resigning, somebody should be sacked. With all the billions that were stolen in the Aso Villa clinic, there was nobody was sacked. There was nobody, nothing happens. So these are the questions that we must ask all the people who are vying up and coming up, to this, and I would add this before I move to the what's it called, the road network and transport network and mobility. I remember writing an article over this during the height of the pandemic season, in the country, where the data we have was that between the Aso Villa and the outskirts, if you take a parameter view within the municipality of the FCT to the peripheries, that is to the fringes from Abaji, Gwagwalada, Buhari, if you take it, that we don't have 5,000 bed space in both the primary, secondary, and the tertiary healthcare. That is worse than shambles. It is an aberration. There is no word to qualify it. That a 6 million population, between 4 to 6 million population, has no 5,000 bed space. This is how dangerous the health sector of the Nigerian economy is.
So there is a massive emergency.
If COVID was COVID in Africa and in Nigeria, we will not be having this interview. It will be exactly the postulation of former Mrs. Gates, because the postulation was that there will be dead bodies on the streets of Africa. That would have been the reality, if not for, like you said, the mercy of God, and also thankfully to our environmental condition that puts, a very protective layer to us as a people. Otherwise, we would have been dead and gone. So these are the questions. We want to know if our leaders even understand this data that we are reading out. We want to know, do our leaders understand that today, as we speak, we have 0.384.5% of doctors to every 1,000 people. Now, I have to slow down at this point, because I know that our viewers, like you rightly said, because we have a huge population of uneducated people, sometimes it is very difficult to understand policy and to understand data analysis. What I'm saying is that we don't have one doctor to 1,000 people in Nigeria. We have 0.3845 ... to 1,000. And yet, a serving current minister of labor and productivity, as a matter of fact, I'm going to call his name, a medical doctor, Dr. Chris Ngige, came out on national TV to say that we Nigerians has doctors in excess. That it was okay to keep shipping out our doctors as slaves. These are the kind of leaders we have. And so for the elections, we must have the leaders, we must ask the right questions. We must be able to pull out the virtues. Otherwise, we should send those politicians that are coming running so that right leaders can come into play. Now, let me just move quickly and brush on the transport system and network, and then I can release the mic to my principal host in Kano. Here we are today in Abuja, between Lagos and Abuja, between Abuja and Lokoja. Most of our roads are not even motorable. The mobility sector, we are supposed to have, if you go to any modern city like we're supposed to have, we should have a straight direct train network between Abuja and every state capital in Nigeria. Every state capital. People are we're not supposed to be driving our cars to work. We're supposed to have a mass transit of buses like we still have in America. The reason why our roads that are made with very cheap and quality materials get eroded from one rainy season to another, it is also doubly so because within a small kilometer of road, you have the traffic, the level of traffic you have within a very small cycle of road system network. Taking the Abuja municipality, for example, is too much. It's unbearable, and that is the only system of movement, transport system that we have in the country within the small municipality. I mean, even growing up as somebody who was born in the late 70s, I learned when my mother used to travel from Kaduna to Otukpo by train. But today we don't have any of those things. So we don't even have a road. We don't even have mobility. We have no mobility network, much less road system network that will work. And so when you look at it, what is the percentage of people that fly? What is the percentage of people that should go by train, that should go by mass transit buses, that should drive? Do you know that with all that we are saying, the number of people that own vehicles in Nigeria is still very, very small comparable to the people that should have it? But because we have no road, the network of mobility, because the network of mobility is not there, it looks as if there are so many people that have cars in Nigeria. There are no people that, the percentage of people that have is still it's still very minute compared to the people that should have. But because there are no mobility network, the movement network is completely zero. And so I end with this, because the parameters that we have covered, these are the indicators for a nation. These are the global indicators for rising nations, for developing nations, and for developed nations. When you look at the road and network systems, when you talk about the health sectors, when you look at the security, when you look at education, these are the indicators for developed nations. And here we are, even as a developing nations, we are still grappling with almost non-existence of mobility connectivity within the key municipalities of the country as a nation. Kano, Abuja, Lagos. The roads that have been built in Lagos 40 years ago, where the population was less than 20 million, is what they are still dealing with. How can that be? It means that we need leaders who have 100 years plan ahead, who can articulate the road system network in terms of its growth and population increase of 100 years postulation, and a plan that will be articulated year after year after year. Those are the kind of leaders that we need to have. And so we need to pose these questions to them to see if they have an understanding of population, if they have an understanding of growth, of the movement of people between rural and urban centers. They have understanding of the connectivity of road network, of train network, of aeroplane, of motorable, district, and all of those connections. These are the questions we should be asking incoming leaders or leaders who want to vie to take the position of leadership as we move towards 2023.
Wow, while you spoke about population as a measure of helping leaders to make right decisions, it occurs to me that the last population census we had was 18 years ago in 2006. No other population census has been held since the last 18 years. Nobody runs a country like that. The 10-year gap between every population census should have helped to guide, so that you can actually estimate what is the percentage of growth for every country for every year per population. What we have been having is population estimates, and nobody can say for sure whether we are 201, 206. Every day you keep seeing different estimates. The UN has got its estimate, World Bank has its estimate, IMF have their own estimate, Nigerian Bureau for Statistics, National Bureau for has got their own estimate. So you have different figures with different parameters, because there are no regular population censuses. Throughout it fell to this government to be able to conduct a population census. It did it. It has always said next year will turn to another year, just like the turnaround maintenance of Nigerian refineries. Last year, they said they budgeted $1.something billion. It's in voicemail now. Nobody's hearing about the refineries. And fuel scarcity persists. They're questioning people. They want to clean up bad fuel with government money. And so we do not have leaders who are visionary, who are goals-oriented or purpose-driven. They're just there to assuage political linings, cronies that will take over from them, and how one zone has to be the zone that will produce the next leader and all of that. So throughout every term, government money is spent on politics and politicking at the detriment of the ordinary person or the average Nigerian who should be enjoying the dividends of democracy. So as they come before us in the coming elections, now they are busy bickering among themselves who will be given the tickets from their political parties. That's why some parties cannot even hold conventions, because they are afraid of imploding. The interests are so many, and they are insisting on consensus. One of the reasons why they have refused, they are pressuring the president not to sign the electoral bill, is because the provision says that if a candidate has to emerge by consensus, other candidates withdrawing have to give a consent letter. And that is impossible with a lot of politicians. Let's go to the field and contest. Whoever wins, wins. But there are people who know that they cannot stand the vote cannot stand a true contest. They're looking for an easy way out. And it is because they actually do not have what it takes to lead.
Yeah.
So that's where we want to anchor our conversation today. We will, by next Thursday, we will be in March. And before then, we should be able to come up with something in one of our 4 thematic areas to begin to talk about. We will still be interrogating national issues once in a while as we come on air, but we want to look at the other thematic areas. Not be only Nigeria with the discuss. We will eat, we will do business, we will have families to run, and then we have a society to
and money to make.
And money to make. So we might be talking about entrepreneurship and a whole lot with respect to personal development in the month of March. So stay tuned, don't touch that dial. Keep your comments coming and give us feedback. When you give us feedback, we know which nerve we are touching and which other area we need to touch. Now, if you keep quiet on us, we might just continue to have this auto run, and we might not know exactly how this conversation is having an impact on you out there. So on behalf of my co-host in Abuja, it's been a beautiful time here also from the Kano studios. Do have a lovely evening and enjoy your night rest. By the way,
Bye-bye.
I will be hosting my co-host in Kano this weekend. So if
That's
you're in
right.
the Kano area, please hook up with my co-host and I as we let me use the language of some people that you might not find funny. As we paint Kano red, we'll paint it green. So watch out for our meetings in Kano this weekend. On Saturday, let me allow my co-host to just give you an idea of why he's going to be in Kano and some of it, and the basic program that we'll be holding on Saturday at the Nitel Training Center, the Digital Bridge Network complex on Saturday by 5 p.m. And then he will be speaking at the live class of the Living Hope Christian Center on Sunday morning. So let me have him talk to us about that program on Saturday as we wrap up this conversation.
The Made in Nigeria show is all about Nigeria. It's about our socio-political history from pre-colonial to colonization to 1960 down to present day. You know, the military era and all of that. It's a theater art production of my very good friend who we have been in the university together. Dike Chukwumerije is one of Nigeria's and Africa's foremost poet, really celebrated around the country, impeccable genius. And so I have been managing the production company and outfit since 2006. And it's done quite well. It's been to about 13. Kano will be the 14th state we are coming to. And so, yes, we'll be there live to experience and to allow Kano experience this one ball to talk about, you know, just it's going to be electrifying, truly, because it's dance, it's drama, it's poetry. There are 20 thematic poems whipped in one, you know, in one long play, which that you won't even know when time has gone, you know, and I mean it. If you come there and you're disappointed, just hold me responsible, you know, but it's one thing that I pray that Nigerians witness, because you will see that there is more that connect us than more that divide us. So that's the Made in Nigeria show, and that's what we're coming to do in Kano Saturday.
So 5 p.m. at the Nitel Training Center, currently the Digital Bridge Network. Is this program free or is paid for? Do we have to pay to get a ticket?
Yes, his ticket is 2,000, and then for student with ID card is 1,000. But we're giving free entry to the first 100 student, and also 5 entry to the first people that are coming. That's all because we are a stickler for time. 500 dot, the meeting has started, even if there's just one person in the hall. So yeah.
It's all right. We'll look forward to having you in Kano tomorrow and through to Sunday. I wish you a safe flight tomorrow morning, and I believe that Kano will treat you well.
Absolutely.
I will be the gatekeeper of Kano treating you well. So viewers, have a lovely evening and enjoy the rest of your night.
Bye-bye.